Welcome to the Biz Gone Social podcast. We help entrepreneurs navigate how to get known, get customers, and get the edge over their competition. Here is your host, Lorraine Duncan.
So here we are on the Biz Gone Social podcast, and I am so stoked to be here. And my promise to you, as always, is I want to give you a little bit of verbal caffeine that's going to energize your business and hopefully your social media marketing and help you stay social. After all, don't you want to be the business that everyone's talking about? Because I know I do. And I am really very honored to have a really special guest with me today, Anastasia Lipske. Welcome, Anastasia.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here. I've been following your show for quite some time, so it's an honor to actually be on it now.
Awesome. And could you tell me a little bit about what you do, what kind of business you run?
So I have a speaker and podcast booking agency, and I also do consulting where I help speakers and people who are using podcast guesting better brand themselves, do the things that they need to do to increase the chances of them getting booked to speak. I talk about etiquette and best practices, how to be that type of guest that people want to have back and refer to other people, and anything and everything related to podcast guesting and speaking.
Wow, that's super interesting. And plus, there's so many people out there right now that do podcasts. If you could, in a nutshell, give 3 very good tips on what people should think about when they're thinking of starting their own podcast, what would that be?
Okay, well, number 1, if you're thinking about actually having your own podcast like you do, Lorraine, I mean, you know how much work it entails. So number 1 is guest on other shows. And make sure that you like having conversations with people, because that's really what it's all about. It does take commitment and a tenacity to be consistent. And I think that that's the most important thing that podcasters, when you're stepping into it, is really be reasonable as to how much time you can invest into this. So some people go, straight out of the gate and they're doing a weekly podcast or 3 times a week. And then they have what's known as that podcast fade, because it just becomes overwhelming. So I always recommend start with what you can do consistently. Maybe it's monthly. Maybe you do it 2 times a month, whatever it might be. You can always add shows down the road, but if you start out fresh out of the gate and then people are looking at your past episodes and they're kind of seeing they're all over the place, mamby-pamby, that doesn't reflect well on you as a professional. So yeah, number 1, guest on other shows, make sure you like it, make the connections, get familiar with the format, discover what you like and don't like about how other hosts run their shows. And then also make certain that you're making a commitment to being very consistent. And the third thing is just learn about it. Pay attention to other shows, read, watch videos, take programs and courses. There's so many different things out there where you can really learn about how to put together an amazing show. You don't need to spend a lot of money and have some fancy schmancy type of, program that you're a part of or anything, but at least do your due diligence and make certain that you are showing up as a professional.
That's great tips there. And I know for myself is that, I had a lot of podcasts that I was like watching and stuff and looking at, and I knew what I didn't like. So by doing that, you kind of get to know how you want to create your own show and it becomes you. And that's really important, because whenever you're doing a podcast, you want to make sure that your personality and who you are as a person is reflected. So great
Absolutely.
tips there. So I know at least 3 other people that are similar. They don't do everything that you do, but are similar to you. What separates you from the other people that are out there? What do you do special for someone who wants to work with you?
Well, there's first off, to clarify, I started as a speaker agency, but a very, very unique one where I represent only platform marketing speakers. These are people who are speaking for free to grow their business. So a traditional speaker agency, the speaker agency would take a 20 to 30% cut of the honorarium or speaker fee they can get on behalf of their client. When you're dealing with representing people who are speaking for free because they want that visibility, say you're a chiropractor and you go out and you educate people about how to take care of their backs, there's always going to be a certain percentage of people that are going to resonate with you and they're going to want to work with you, or they might tell their brother-in-law about you because their brother-in-law's, been a pain in the neck. So that's one aspect of it. And I really don't know anybody else that's doing anything quite like that. So that started until March of 2020, which was a really bleak month for me, as you can imagine. Everything was canceled. Every single thing I did was canceled. And the only other free speaker agency I knew of had actually closed their doors during COVID. So I embraced the pivot word of 2020 and decided to start booking podcasts for my grounded speakers, because speaking was the number one marketing tool for many of these people. And so if I could get them out there, at least be visible out there, then that would tide us over until they could get back on stages. What I discovered was that I fell in love with the podcast guesting aspect of it. And I could talk for hours about the benefits of podcast guesting. But what's unique is that I created my podcast agency, in essence, after the way I had done my speaker agency, which was very different. So I don't know of any podcast booking agency that gets paid on production. So generally what we do is we will run a show by our clients that we feel is a good fit for them. That client then gets to come back and say, yes, I'm interested, or no, not really feeling it. If it's a yes, then we go out and we try to get them booked on that show. And if we get them booked, they pay us a flat fee for that show. So I only know of people that they charge very, very high monthly fees. And they generally don't let the clients choose the shows. So that's one big difference. But I also do not do a lot of the things that they do. Like I know some of them, when you sign on with those types of agencies, they create your content. They do your one sheet. They do all your social media marketing. Like I don't do that. We are primarily the booking aspect of it. And then we handle the details once the booking is made. But it's all, we're just paid on production, basically.
I absolutely love that. And so many things came up while you were speaking, and I was just like listening to everything you had to say. And one thing I do want to say, and I've only known Anastasia maybe for about 4 months. I heard her speak at an event that I was at. And honestly, I connected with her right away, and she's the real deal. So I just want to say that.
Thank you.
And the other thing I want to say is you have so much knowledge, and you gave me a couple tips that I've been working on since, and still continue to just improve my podcast. And it's been they were just amazing tips. So do listen to her today.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
I'm going to switch the subject a little bit, because both of us, me and you, are both on, or I should say you and me, are both on, we both own our own businesses. Mm-hmm. And literally it is, that's a whole nother aspect of our business. And so there's a lot of people who are listening to my show right now that are thinking of maybe dabbling in trying out doing things on their own and not working for someone anymore. Mm-hmm. And so what do you think is the best thing that you love about owning your own business?
I love being my own boss. Sometimes my boss is not so kind. Sometimes my boss comes down pretty hard on me, but I really love the flexibility of being able to do that. I tend to be a very creative person, not creative like in the arts. I appreciate the arts. They're not my gift. I draw stick figures and I don't play any instruments, despite the fact that I own many, because I keep thinking I will. But I'm creative in how I look at things and how I sort things out. So what I did not know way back when, I came from the world of tourism. I spent 30 years in tourism. I was known for being in the world of international tourism, in the luxury spectrum, if you will. I did a lot of stuff that no one had ever done. I was an intrapreneur, which I had never heard of before. And it's that creativity, that desire to try something new, to do something, that I love being completely untethered and I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
So, it just, there's something really powerful behind that ability to just go full board with an idea. And sometimes I realize maybe that wasn't such the best, the best decision, but that's okay, because that's how we learn, right? As we were talking earlier today, as my dad said, first the test and then the lesson. So that tends to be how I learn everything that I'm doing in my business. I didn't have anybody to emulate. So I just kind of started doing my own thing and just doing it how I would want someone to do for me if I was on the other end.
Absolutely. And I think that's the most important thing you said there, is definitely, it's like, it's how you treat others, it's, and how, how would you treat yourself? Would you do that for yourself? Would you do a job like that? So very, very good. I was like thinking about, we always talk about the glamour, the glitz of owning your own business. Everybody thinks, when I say that I own my own business, they go, wow, that's pretty cool. And I say, yeah. We never talk about the challenges. And so in as short as you want it to be, it's like, what would you say is your biggest challenge in running your business on the daily basis?
Lack of focus for me, because that creativity, I have a popcorn brain. And I'm not going to say quite that it's the shiny object syndrome, but I tend to go in many different directions. And when I do go, I go deeper than it makes sense. Deeper, like I go beyond the point of a good ROI, return on my investment of time, because I then start getting too personal, too connecting. I'm really, really focused on relationships. And as an example, I've spent an inordinate amount of time reaching out to a whole bunch of people that have registered for an event that I'm doing, just to introduce myself, to ask if they have any specific questions that they would love me to cover, like just developing the relationship with these people beforehand, which is really valuable because they're far more likely to show up. And when they do show up, they have a connection to me because we just connected on LinkedIn and they got to know a little bit more about me and vice versa. So I love doing that type of stuff, but sometimes I can go too deep. And I need to rein it back in. As our common business mentor, Katarina Rando, often says, done is better than perfect. And I need to remind myself, I get to remind myself of that on a regular basis, because that is something that escapes me pretty regularly. So focus, I struggle with it. It's my mantra. It is my word for 2023. I fail at it miserably every day. And guess what? I wake up the next day and I get a do-over. And it doesn't matter that I didn't have my focus the way I wanted it the day before. I get to start over. And that's where I would say my biggest challenge is.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we all sometimes can be reined in a little bit when it comes to focus and clarity. And what is like one thing you do to get yourself, right back on track when you lose a little bit of that focus?
I do breathing techniques. I have a great app that I use. It's called Breathwork, but it's missing the E. I think it's missing vowels. I use that. I actually use essential oils. I will also turn on music that helps me focus. So I have certain Pandora stations, and it depends on what I want to instill in that moment. So it might be my Mozart station. It might be Itzhak Perlman, but sometimes it's Evanescence. Sometimes it's Enya. So, I had this Azam Ali, which is like a lot of belly dance music. And because I try to be careful that it's not music that I want to sing the words to all the time, because then I'll distract myself with the music. So it's generally music that is in another language like Azam Ali, or it's instrumental. But Evanescence, yeah, when I listen to that Pandora station, it might there might be words in it that I recognize, but it's the core, the sensation that I feel in my heart when I'm listening to it. And it just really gets me, kind of jazzed up to start doing that work. So yeah, music, essential oils, breathing, and a commitment, like, this is it, I'm going to do it. Oh, and I have a sand timer too. I have a sand timer from Intelligent Change that I'll flip over, and I'll really utilize kind of that Pomodoro technique, I think it's called, where you're just doing the time on, time off, and it does really help. So
absolutely, and really great tips. I actually use all of them, with the exception of the Pandora. I actually have a song, like a theme song, that I use that I listen to all the time, and it's like a superhero song. And
oh wait,
so
which one is it? Let me know.
I can't think of their name right now. I'm going totally blank, but
Oh.
I will get it. It's like, it's on my, it's so funny. It's on my phone, and it's like, but it's, oh my gosh. I can hear it, and I don't actually, this is very sad. I can't think of the name of it, which means that below the post, when I post this podcast, I will put the name of it.
Yes, show notes. I want to know your go-to song.
It's gonna drive everybody crazy now. So
yeah, well, like people have their, like, the Eye of the Tiger kind of, like certain songs, and that really get them jacked up, which that happens for me too. My morning song is, when I wake up in the morning, oh my gosh.
So I remembered my song.
Yeah.
My song is Titanium, it's called.
Oh yeah. That's a great song.
It's like, I listen to it all the time, because it's like, it energizes me for my calls. It energizes me for my day. I just love it. So yeah, if you think of your song,
Titanium.
Yeah, make sure.
Yeah. It's famous. I think Bill Withers sang it initially, and beautiful rendition of it. But Out of Eden did another one that just makes me dance all over the place. That's my morning wake up song. But then, yeah, I listen to music all day. It's a big part of my soul. So.
Awesome. And lastly, just, one piece of advice that you can give someone just starting out with a podcast, or the one thing that they should do first.
If starting their own podcast, well, kind of going back to those suggestions of making certain that you are guesting on other shows and learning what you need to learn, make certain that you have good equipment. That's going to be very important, and know that, you have a lot of choices in the platforms that you put your podcast on, the avenue by which you distribute it. So like in the case of yours, you do audio only. Some people, the choices, are you going to do video as well? Well, if you're going to do video as well, it's important that you remember that you look professional. I once was vetting a show for one of my clients, and the gal has a YouTube channel. So she extrapolates the sound like usual and puts it out on traditional podcasting audio formats. But she also shares on YouTube the visual recordings. And I'm looking at this woman, and she's in a t-shirt, sitting on a couch with crap all over it, and like totally casual, sitting back. And I'm looking at this, I'm like, no. My client is not going to be on this show if they're going to be seen with a host who does not look professional. One thing to keep in mind with podcasting, podcast guesting, etc., it is evergreen. It's there forever. Everything that you do brands who you are and what you're about. So be careful with where you go. When you're considering shows that you've been invited to, make certain that it's really in alignment with your core message, and make certain that you resonate with that host. I always recommend that you listen to a podcast first before you agree to be on it, or that you propose yourself to be on that show. And make sure that when you're listening to it, you jive with that host enough to the point where you think, would I want to have a cup of coffee or tea in a cafe with this person? Do I want to sit down and have a conversation with them? Because if you don't do it. Because then it's going to be this strained conversation that everybody can hear, and you'll do more damage than you will, grow your reputation and your visibility and your credibility, because it feels strained. Like, what if that's the only time somebody hears you and it's just not flowing well? You don't want that. So be prudent in where you book yourselves, but remember, if you are a host, be prudent in the guests that you have on your show, making certain that they're appropriate. Now, you always have unless it's a live show, you do always have the option of pulling the plug. And after you've done an interview, you say, this is not going to serve either of us, so I'm not going to air it. That's okay. This is your show. You get to do that. So remember, you are branding you. And I just feel that it's really important that people put the extra time and effort into really feeling into it, and remembering that it might be 3 years after the fact that someone is stumbling upon that episode, and you want to make sure that it's reflecting the person that you want to be seen as. And that's very important. So
this is awesome. I could talk about this subject forever.
So could I.
But for those of you who want to go a little bit further and want to learn more about Anastasia, how could they get in touch with you?
The easiest thing is simply to go to this web address, which is my website /thank you. So it's accessspeakers.biz, biz/thank you. That is also an example of what I would recommend that everyone who is doing podcast guesting do for themselves as well, to have one landing page with all your contact information in one place. So anyone who's listening, if you go there, you'll know how to contact me. LinkedIn is where I hang. I don't hang out on the other social media channels. But more importantly, I have a free ebook that you can get when you subscribe. And then I don't abuse a platform, I assure you of that. But also, I'm always happy to talk with people and do like a little mini consultation. We can set up a time, 15, 20 minutes, and I can give you a sense for some of the things that I can share with you to help you up your game. And just reach out to me by that page, accessspeakers.biz/thank you.
Awesome. And everyone out there, thank you for listening today, and I'll see you next week. Have a really great week.
Thanks for listening to the Biz Gone Social podcast. Find us on Instagram @BizGoneSocial for extra tips. Check back weekly for new episodes. Until next time, stay social.